Good morning all. Could we start the meeting, please? We are now live, just to warn you. So welcome to the first Police and Crime Commissioner panel of this municipal year. Please note the proceedings are being recorded and streamed live. Before we proceed with the nominations for the Chair and Vice Chair, in line with the panel procedures, I'd like to bring your attention to a few housekeeping matters. If you wish to speak during the meeting, I would ask that you raise your hand and wait for the Chair to invite you to speak. In terms of voting, we will be voting via a show of hands, and you'll be given the option of voting for one of the candidates during the appointment of Chair and Vice Chair. Any panel member may stand for election as Chair, and the candidate receiving the most votes from amongst those present will be elected. If there are 3 or more candidates for a position and none has more than half of the votes, the candidate with the fewest votes will be eliminated and a new vote will be taken. This will continue until one candidate has more than half of the votes. Without further ado, I'll move to item 1. Councillor Crowd.
Can I propose Councillor Sally Hayden?
Thank you. We've moved to item 1, appointment for the Chair. Councillor Crowd would like to nominate Councillor Hayden. Is there a seconder for that?
Yes, I'd like to second that, please.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No, thank you. Can we move to the vote, please? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I ask you to take the chair, Councillor Hayden?
Okay, and welcome everyone, and thank you for your support. I think before I move on to Vice Chair, I think it's really important to minute the good work that Kevin done as Chair, and I'm sure we will wish him well in his health, speedy recovery. So moving on to item 2 is the appointment of Vice Chair for this year. Do we have any nominations, please? Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you. Apparently, we need to have a Vice Chair from Cornwall. I do apologise, it wasn't told to me. So, thank you. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Hacker? Oh, come on. I can see we were all very organised before the start of this meeting.
In the Constitution,
Base Chair, we need to have a Cornwall Vice Chair.
Can I propose Councillor Worth?
Do we have a seconder, please? I do apologise. Can we take a vote on that? Sorry. I thought after all the confusion we would have all deadly agreed. So, thank you. So moving on to item 3 is apologies. Do we have any apologies for today's meeting, please?
We have apologies for Councillor Kennedy. That's it. Thank you.
Do we have any subs for Kennedy? No. Okay. And if we can move on to item 4, please, is the minutes. Oh, I do apologise.
Just having a quick look around the room, Chair. We've talked before about the importance of people apologising and sending subs. One apology seems to leave us still a number short. I wonder whether, following Council AGMs, leaders can be reminded that their appointments to this panel are important appointments.
That's certainly noted. Thank you. We are quorate though, aren't we? Yeah. Okay. Again, moving on to item 4 is the minutes of the 2nd of February we're looking through. I'm quite happy to go through page by page because I'm sure we've all had quite a busy time. Okay, so page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and page 6. Everybody happy with the minutes? Thank you. Any show of hands? Everyone in agreement? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so item 5, declaration of interest. Does any members have any declarations of interest? No. Item 6, public questions. I believe there is no public questions today. It's a good start, isn't it, going through the agenda quickly? Item 7, we have the draft annual report.
Chair,
Yes?
if I may, can I move that we take item 9 as precedent in the agenda?
Happy to second, Chair.
Can I see a show of hands of support of that then, please? Okay. Sorry, we will now move item 9 up to the agenda. Okay. So, welcome Mark Kingscott, if I said that right? Sorry, I do apologise. I've had some dental work yesterday and I'm still trying to get my tongue around my words. So, if I'd like to hand over to yourself and the Police and Crime Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, congratulations for becoming the appointed chair, elected chair for the panel, and to Councillor Worth for stepping in maybe at short notice for becoming the Cornwall's representative. Thank you very much. I'd also just like to make note of my regards to Kevin Towell as well. I thought he was a chairman who was very inclusive and kind, and I'd just like to wish him well as well, myself and my office as well, in relation to him. I suppose the first thing, by putting this first on the agenda, it means I've got to really talk about the first 2 agendas to set the case for why I'm even having a deputy. So I'm sort of, I'll try not to go into too much detail, otherwise we may miss out. And I'm just thinking in terms of, one of the questions you're probably asking me around this particular position is why now, and why Mark? So I will attempt to answer those 2 for you, and then obviously open to questions. But I'd just like to outline, just to be clear to the panel, that this is not an interview process for Mr. Kingscote for you today. That was my position, to choose him, to appoint him as a deputy. Your job is to ask me the questions as to why, how, who, what therefore, and whether I followed all the correct procedures. So just to be really clear that is not the case today. One of the challenges that you probably recognise, I'm in my 3rd term now as Police and Crime Commissioner. My first term was 5 years, because the election was delayed due to COVID. Then I've had a 3-year term, and this is the first 4-year term that I'll actually be able to carry out, which would be normal procedure for a police and crime commissioner. So we've had quite a turbulent time, I would say, in the 3 terms that we've had. I'll also just like to outline in terms of at the moment, around half police and crime commissioners in the country have deputy police and crime commissioners, and it's just like yourself as a leader of a council appointing a deputy, an elected mayor appointing a deputy. It's a political appointment. It's not out for open recruitment, and it's a decision of the commissioner to make. So I'll just make that clear for you. One of the things that I would say, and some of the challenges that I face right now, and obviously we're not going through the previous 2 agenda items, is while my office has been quite successful, whether that's making the budget sustainable, thank you to your support for that at the budget meeting in February, whether that's recruiting, record numbers of police officers that we've now got, whether that's reopening police inquiry offices, whether it's things that the community want to see, winning an award for prisoners building homes, and we're hoping to have 82 built this year in the southwest, and we're really hoping the government is keen to pick up that scheme and take it nationally, because I think it's right up their street. So while the things that I've been responsible for have been quite successful over the past year and in the first 3 terms, I'd say we've had some challenges in performance over the police force itself. And as you know, at the moment, the force is engaged with His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary. So there's regular extra monitoring happening with the Chief Inspector of the Constabulary. And one of those challenges in particular is around the sorts of things that would make your blood boil. It's the sorts of things that we all really care about. It's whether we're good at answering the phone, good at responding to incidents, whether we're good at investigations, all of these things which you would expect to be the bread and butter of a police force. Devon and Cornwall is struggling. So I need some help as a commissioner to help with overseeing that police force at the moment, particularly as we have an acting arrangement with a suspended chief constable. I'm sure many of you who have worked in local authorities where your chief executive is not present, it is much more challenging, and this has been going on for a year now, and we're not expecting any result of something to happen anytime soon. So I need some assistance. I particularly need some assistance in relation to the estates function, because I'm struggling to get planning applications through, whether that's through Exeter, whether that's through Exmouth. I want somebody who can really help scrutinise the planning applications and the approaches that the estates team that my office oversees is submitting to councils so that we can get them through. I also need to make sure that we're really focused on some of the challenges in our community in a different way this term of office. It's really easy as an option for me as a commissioner to just give a local authority some money to tackle the problem. And what I've noticed is it doesn't matter what money I give, it's not really getting to the root cause or the issues that are affecting our communities. And that is absolutely antisocial behaviour, drug dealing and street homelessness. Now, I haven't got responsibility for street homelessness, but I certainly want to see what we can do to support local authorities with the problems that they're suffering on their streets. So instead of being corporate-wide, or instead of even being basic command unit-wide, I am going street level in this term of office, because we've got too many streets suffering those problems that the community, we've even got no-go areas in some parts of our a patch across Devon and Cornwall, but one in particular, which is the poor relation across Devon in particular, is Torbay. And I really need a focus at street level on Torbay in the first instance, and we're hoping to create a blueprint for the rest of the whole of Devon and Cornwall where these issues are happening. So I just wanted you to be aware of some of the reasons why I need extra help this term of office than we have before. One of the things I will say is Mark's background in particular that impressed me is he has done years of scrutinising local authorities. He has been chair of planning and dealt with very, very difficult, contentious planning applications as the chairman of planning. And any of those of you involved in planning committees will understand what that means in terms of the vociferous nature of some of those who are objecting to planning applications. So he's quite a strong-minded individual and is able to cope with pressure. Particularly as well, he has a background in dealing and supporting people with mental health problems. Mental health challenges, those who have got diagnosed disorders. Now, we know some of that is part of the issues we've got on our streets that need resolving, and I think he'll bring a wealth of experience to how we better deal with that with some of our partners. I'm particularly keen to ensure that this panel, you will see, I will bring things to you that we are doing as well, in addition to my role, about the efforts that we're making to make a difference in relation to this area with having a deputy. And I think one of the biggest issues that's just happened today is the State of Policing report has been produced by and released by His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, and it still shows Devon and Cornwall Police in a poor light, and there's so much improvement that's needed. You might be interested to know that by working with His Majesty's Chief Inspector of Constabulary, I have brought in to work with both myself and the Acting Chief Constable, the Lord Bernard Hogan Howe, to be a strategic advisor for a short period of time. You can see the depth of the challenge that I face from a leadership capability and capacity. So I think one of the things for me in terms of this is I just want to focus on the street, not the organisation as a whole, not the basic command units, not the local authorities. I need to focus on the street to make a difference to people who are deeply affected by those issues of antisocial behaviour, drug dealing and street homelessness. And I need assistance with the governance of the force in terms of their overall performance, and particularly some of those estate challenges that we face that we need to overcome. Because I've got police officers working out of Exmouth Police Station that is an absolute, it should be knocked down. I've got, want to demolish it. And at the moment, because I might have bats there, I've got to do a bat survey, even though you can mitigate if you've got bats, and I can't get the application accepted by the planning authority. So that's normal practice down here, but it's just frustrating for me. I've also got the issue of Heavy Tree Road Police Station for, that we've attempted a couple of times to go through planning and failed even at appeal. So I need to get somebody to help me rethink the way that we're doing some of that to help local authorities approve the planning that we're putting forward for police officers or for housing for people, which is what's happening on some of those pieces of land. So I suppose I've outlined in the report is for you to see what the process is in terms of the appointment of a deputy. I need someone who I can trust. I need someone who I can get hold of regularly. I need someone who has the same views as me, because they will be acting on my behalf. They will not be acting on their own behalf. They will be acting on my behalf. And as you can probably imagine, you want to make sure that they are aligned with you in similar views in the way that they approach things and the way that they carry out their business. So I suppose I'll suggest to you, to panel, that I recommend Mark Kingscote, and this is a confirmation hearing, and you're welcome to challenge me and question me on my appointment. Thank you, Chairman.
And thank you very much, Commissioner. I'd like to open it up for questions. Do we actually have any questions? Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you. We were given some notes just now, which says that one of the first things we should look at are the criteria by which the appointment has been made. I've read your paper. It doesn't tell us explicitly. So I've looked back to 2017, and lo and behold, the same candidate, there was criteria, we were given report in terms of how he met those criteria. We've got none of that in this report. And of course, I therefore looked at the result of 2017 and seen that the candidate wasn't appropriate. I cannot find in your paper an explicit list of criteria, nor can I find in your paper an explicit list of what the candidate did. And when I looked on LinkedIn, I couldn't find it there either. It looks to me that we as a panel are being asked to appoint someone on the basis of non-existent criteria and no candidate information at all. As a start, Commissioner, I think that is really lax paperwork on your behalf. And if that's where we start with the paperwork before we get onto any real questioning, I am already feeling that this is something being tried to slid past us without us being able to fully scrutinise it at a proper way in a confirmation hearing. So that was, I'm starting there. I'm sure there are other questions. I've got other questions. I just wanted to put that really firmly on the ground that at the moment, based on the paperwork you've given me, I can't confirm because I can't see the criteria and I can't actually see anything about the candidate.
Thank you, Councillor. Commissioner?
Thank you, Chairman. So Appendix C outlines the role profile for the Deputy Police and Crime Commissioner. And that is the things that I'm expecting the Deputy to be able to do. That is the basis upon which I have chosen the candidate. And it states in there specific areas of responsibility, qualifications, skills, key responsibilities, personal qualities, overview of the role. So that's the criteria upon which I have selected.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just very bemused by the way this appointment is happening, although I do understand you're quite within your legal rights to do it this way. But I just want to state, it seems very odd that you have had to go through a very big democratic selection process with members of the public to put you to your position, but then a deputy doesn't have to go through any of that. So it does mean, I think, we have to be really, really careful and scrutinise everything we possibly can if we are to be rubber stamping this appointment. So could you tell us, it's not easy to see from the criteria, I appreciate, as you said, there is criteria there and we're told the candidate meets that criteria, but can you tell us what particular skills, aspirations and experience does this candidate have which couldn't be found in anyone else in the Southwest?
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose firstly, you'll be quite surprised to know that when mayors appoint their deputy mayors that are not elected, they are actually the Police and Crime Commissioner. So you have unelected Police and Crime Commissioners around this country. So I think the fact that you actually are here with an elected Police and Crime Commissioner, and I have a responsibility and an ability to appoint a deputy to support me, should give you some reassurance that at least you've got an elected Police and Crime Commissioner, which I think is different from many other areas. In terms of the skills that Mark brings, there's a couple of critical ones. One is he's been an elected councillor before, and he understands how to act on behalf of communities. And that is, as we all are as elected councillors, might be representing the council sometimes at meetings, but actually we're representing our residents. And I need someone who has that ability to represent residents because they go out and talk to residents. They are active in the community. And that's one of the skill sets that Mark brings in particular. And I have been with him when we're doing that. We've had years of working together with communities, so I've seen him in action in relation to that. Another really particular skill that he brings is his former role in Chairman of Planning. He is very good at delivering within a policy framework. I create the policy framework with the Police and Crime Plan, and the deputy will be delivering within that. And I know that Mark is very good at delivering within a policy framework and making sure you're adhering to the rules and the expectations of what's been agreed. Another one in particular is his background in mental health. He's worked for 30 years in the NHS, but particularly in the realm of mental health. And as you may know, panel, we've had many challenges of how to get our partners within mental health to step up and support our communities. Well, I have someone who understands the inside out of how those organisations work, how you help people who have got diagnosed mental health problems, and also has years of experience of supporting them successfully in our community. Now, not many people have both a strategic skill for things like Chairman of Planning and the ability to support individuals with mental health needs. And I think these are the reasons why I'm finding him very unique in terms of his skill set. In particular, he's also been a champion of young people in relation to the Prince's Trust. So he has very much supported young entrepreneurs in the Torbay area to actually step forward. Now, Torbay is one of the most deprived areas that we've got in the southwest. I'm sure we'd all argue about which ward or super output area is more deprived than another, but Torbay really does have its challenges and is a small unitary authority. Mark is well networked within Torbay in particular, and with focusing on the street that I'm going to attempt to create a blueprint for across Devon and Cornwall, and I'm starting with Torquay, he is well placed to do that in terms of Torquay. This will be tested for a year, this role. We will see how it goes in terms of it, because I also might want to focus on another geography after we've attempted the blueprint in Torquay. So just for your awareness, it's specifically those Torquay networks and contacts and experience that will also assist with being a deputy for this year.
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and congratulations. Alison, how many people did you interview for the job? What skills did they have when they came forward? How did you select market against these others? And is there going to be any increase in the budget that is needed to run your office with this extra appointment? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I had a conversation with a number of individuals, and if you think about, the mayor for Cornwall that was maybe considered, and nobody wants to go for a mayor for devolution for Cornwall, and part of the reason is people can't see who the candidate will be. That's part of the reason. So we do have, I would say at the moment, I want to choose somebody who's within Devon and Cornwall. I don't want to choose somebody who's from outside. So I have had a few conversations with individuals, but they just didn't bring enough experience in governance, in scrutiny, in estates, which I really need a lot of help in. People don't tend to have that really broad range, that have the time, because this is not going to be a part-time role. I did even consider some elected councillors before, but they don't have the time to give to this role, so I need someone who has the time to be able to do it as well. So yes, there were a few other conversations, but this mark stood out in terms of what we're trying to do, particularly focused in the first year on Torquay.
And the costs?
And the costs, so if members recall, we added the deputy role in the budget in February, so it's already added into the office costs at the moment. It's an additional, it is a budget that's already been set.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, Commissioner. I think it's the first time I've seen you since you got re-elected. I have several questions, if I may, Chair. The first, and I'm looking at the documentation you provided to us in the pack. And if I look at page 40 in the pack, my question, I suppose, here is, in what ways does the candidate, and quote what you say, complement her, as in your own skills and experience? And secondly, at page 41, quote, which unique blend of skills does the candidate bring? And in answer to both of those points, I'd like you to concentrate on how is it that you believe you could not find any of that in anybody else in the Southwest? That's my first question.
Well, Chairman, I'm sure I could across the whole Southwest, but there's probably plenty of people, but my view is that Mark is the best candidate for the job.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, if I then look to the wider agenda that we've got in front of us, so in your draft annual report for 23-24, which is at pages 7 to 34, Torbay is only mentioned 4 times in that, and if you look at that, in reality, at page 14, that's the only one I would suggest that has any proper relationship to the points that you're making, and that's around violent crime. There it talks about Torbay being at 27.7%, but it identifies Plymouth at 30.1%. Now, I have to be honest, I don't know Torbay, and I don't know Plymouth in detail. Now, if I then also look at your draft police and crime plan for 24-29, which is at pages 35 to 38, Torbay receives no mention in there. And in the Associated Peninsula Strategic Assessment 23-24 that draft plan references, When we look at the 11 major policing metrics that it comments upon, Torbay is top in the assessment of Cornwall, Devon, Plymouth and Torbay in only one issue, and that's at page 44 of that assessment, and that's violence with injury. Indeed, if I look at 6 of the 11 metrics in there, they weren't, Torbay wasn't assessed, whilst the other 3 were. And if I look at Plymouth, Plymouth to me comes out feeling, reading that report, to be in need of greater focus, although you talk about Torbay being your prime focus, initial focus. And when I consider all of this, why at page 41 of this agenda do you say that the candidate, he has a detailed knowledge of the challenges in the Torbay area, and why are you, as you say at page 42, given the points I've highlighted, quote, wanting to start in Torbay to refocus, and again, quote, tackling the long-standing issues across the 2 counties. So, considering all of this, wouldn't you have been better advised to have sought out a deputy who has better knowledge of another significant urban area within your patch, possibly Plymouth? And I make, I'm not here to argue Plymouth's case, but reading all that documentation, Plymouth at least says to me it's in greater need of focus than Torbay.
Thank you, Chairman. Just in terms of the annual report, that is a look back on what we've been doing for the past year. And in terms of the police and crime plan, it's not finalised yet. So it's just to give you an outline of what might be in the police and crime range, which will come before you in draft in September for you to critique in much more detail and to make sure that we've got some of those elements that last time, for example, Councillor Wright ensured was strengthened, and Councillor Atia Allah also made sure was strengthened in the police and crime plan. So that's yet to be fully finalised. There's a few reasons why. I mean, this is a compliment to Exeter and Plymouth. They are well managed. There is a great working relationship between the police and the council. In fact, there's a fantastic relationship between the police and the council, a very excellent professional working relationship. There is a focus on getting things done. There has been quite a lot of funding that I've given through Safer Streets and other means to those cities. I've taken a personal oversight in a lot of the issues that have happened in those 2 cities. And Torbay, I will go back to, is the poor relation. So it is a basic command unit in its own right, like Plymouth is a basic command unit in its own right. If Torbay had the policing resources that Plymouth had, in the same ratio to residents, it would have way more. So it's never fully had the corporate resources that a basic command unit should receive. So there is a poor relation in relation to its policing, and I'm not saying I'm taking it from Exeter or Plymouth, that's not my decision, this is Chief Constable's decision, but I'm trying to highlight the weaknesses that are happening in that particular area. The council also has its own challenges, and one of the things I've identified already is that there wasn't a good working relationship between policing and the council in that particular area. And they've been identified as for serious and organised crime for clear, hold, build, which I think I mentioned to you at last panel. And the challenges they've got, a clear, hold, build is about clearing an area of your problem. It's about holding it so it doesn't come back, and it's about building sustainability into that for the future. It's a national initiative. I am sure the new government would want to continue with that. And that has been a real challenge to sort in Torbay, because Torquay was identified because people do not report at all a lot of the problems that are happening in Torquay, because it's been going on for so long that they didn't even have a good data set to understand the serious and organised criminality in the Torbay and South Devon area. So completely different picture in Plymouth of what they understand, and a completely different picture in Exeter of what they understand. So this is about putting a bit of a spotlight on a weak area in our patch in terms of seeing what we can do. So those are some of the reasons why I'm focusing on Torbay in the first instance. because there are other places that need this help. Camborne, I identified in my travels, in my election campaign. There are other communities that need a lot of assistance and support, but I need to find a blueprint that'll work at street level that we don't have at the moment.
Okay, do you mind if I bring some other people in and then I will keep you on the list? Is that Councillor Hackett?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Maybe there's a massive elephant in the room here. The same candidate came before us in 2017, and it was found inappropriate to go forward. Are we allowed to directly speak to the candidate?
I'm quite happy to ask our legal advice. Yes, by all means, you're allowed to ask questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Kingscote. Can I ask how many events you've attended with the Police and Crime Commissioner in the past? How closely you've followed her role?
Well, I've been campaigning with the Police and Crime Commissioner since Christmas, going out, knocking on doors, speaking to people every day since Christmas, gathering a wide range of concerns and issues, reporting back to the Commissioner. The Commissioner and I have a very close working relationship. We've worked well as a team together, and we've achieved a lot in the past when we were councillors together and been involved in other organisations and things. So we work well together, we have a strong working relationship, and you know, we're both very determined people, and we both want to achieve what we set out to do.
So you're making clear this is just a working relationship?
Well, it's not a physical relationship.
No, I didn't say it was.
No.
No.
Yeah.
No. Your words, not mine.
Councillor Hackett, we just need to be cautious of our questioning.
Absolutely,
Okay, please.
absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to establish that this was a professional working relationship. Now, you mentioned campaigning together, but before that?
Before that, we were both councillors in the same ward together, and we achieved a lot as councillors together, and we worked really well together, and we both sing from the same hymn sheet. You know, we formalise a plan, we agree how we're going to go forward, and then we go forward. And yeah, we understand collective responsibility, working together as a team, and that's very important. And you know, I've always been really pleased and happy to work with the Commissioner.
Right. I can recall seeing you at events historically. Would you like to enlighten us what events you've attended with the Police and Crime Commissioner over the recent years, or go back to when you first attended events together?
Yeah. Yeah, we have attended civic events together. The High Sheriff of Devon's service, Legal Sunday, numerous charity events supporting charities across Devon and Cornwall. So, you know, we have gone, and it's been organisations and charities we've both had a keen interest in. For instance, at Christmas 2 years ago, there was a fundraising event for St. Petrox, and I know the Commissioner's very keen to support St. Petrox, so am I. So yeah, we have attended numerous events together.
Forgive me, I'm trying to focus.
Councillor Hackett, can you just come down to an actual question?
I am.
Here,
Okay,
so
I'm trying
thank
to
you.
establish the pertinency of events in the past. I'll pluck on a specific. 1st of February 2020, you attended the opening of the Exeter Police Station. In what capacity did you get an invitation to that event, please?
I was a councillor at the time, and I was representing Torbay Council, and I was invited to go along, and I found it extremely interesting, and I was very impressed with the building.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do you mind if I move on and then come back to you?
Most certainly,
Okay,
not a problem.
I just would like to give everyone a fair chance. Councillor Crowe?
Me, sorry. Commissioner, you've been a great advocate of Mr. Kingscote over the years. Indeed, you were 7 years ago. But I've actually never heard of anyone applying for a job without a detailed CV. We've got a sort of half a page on page 41, I see, and a repeat on page 53. And of course, your warm words, Commissioner. I'd like to address Mr. Kingscote, if I may. I've got two things, really. I suppose what I'm looking at is your background. I mean, a detailed background. I mean, you may give it orally, because it's too late for the written word. And the second part is, what will you bring to the job that is missing at the moment? Over to you.
Chairman, just if I may, about the CV issue, just to reassure panel, the deputy actually is a member of the staff of the office. Unlike me, I'm not a member of the staff of the office, but the deputy is a member of the staff of the office. So the chief executive has had a copy of his CV. She is the one who has helped produce the report for you before panel today. And as you may well know, the chief exec of my office would not let me employ someone who was incompetent, who was not good at what they did, who wasn't going to add value to this role. Because the chief executive of my office is also the monitoring officer for complaints against the Police and Crime Commissioner. So just to reassure panel about that process, they will be a member of staff. He is fully vetted already, just so that you're aware as well. So we're not going to have any issues around that either. But I'll let Mark answer on the...
Point, Madam Chairman, thank you. Well, I have the greatest respect for the Chief Executive, as you know, but I don't see it here. And as someone who's going to be voting one way or t'other, and recognising also the fact that the panel has no power of veto also, but I want to see it. And if I can't see it, then I want to hear it. Thank you.
So just in terms of process, the law does not require the CV of the candidate to come before the confirmation hearing, in the same way that many of you will recall when both myself and the Treasurer were appointed to our roles, there was a summary provided of our experience and background, but you were not supplied with the CV at the time because it's not a legal requirement. So I've summarised the report, the key points as I see pertinent to this panel. So but if you wish to address Mr. Kingscote on the specifics, then by all means. But I have seen a CV, I have taken references, we have 2 excellent references for Mr. Kingscote, and as the Commissioner has said, he has passed his vetting.
Okay, did you want to come back, or did you want Mark to answer those questions for you?
I'd like Mark to answer those questions, please.
Yeah, well, I have over 30 years experience working in the NHS in mental health, dealing and working with patients with long-term and enduring mental health issues, very complex issues. I've been a councillor for many years, chairman of planning for many years, overseeing multi-million-pound applications. Some of them can be very contentious at the time. I've been involved with the Prince's Trust, supporting young people. I have a wide experience of sitting on the scrutiny board at Torbay Council, and I've got a lot of experience working with the community, building communities. There was a peer review carried out on the planning committee, and the report stated that I offered very clear, strong, positive leadership, and I've always been a very sort of clear, and a positive person. If you want to know what my negative aspects are, I would say I'm impatient to get things done. I like to get things done, but also I acknowledge that sometimes you have to look to the future and set foundations and be a bit more patient. But yeah, I have a lot of experience working with communities, building communities, working with different organizations, and I also have a lot of contacts with local government associations, MPs' offices, chief executives. So yeah, I can bring a lot to the role, and I would be very honoured and happy to work with the Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, I'm just before I go down the list, I'm actually going to ask a question myself. It's very difficult sitting in a chair. You don't get that opportunity, do you? So myself, question is to Alison, yourself. I want to go back to the salary point. Okay, so on page 55, it's showing you, your 58, let's round it off to 59, all right, annual salary. That's obviously not including an office, staff, everything that comes behind that, national insurance, everything that comes behind it. If you didn't have a deputy, where could that money go? I could make you hundreds of suggestions. I'm very disappointed to hear we've talked an awful lot about Torbay, Torquay, about your blueprint. I've read your papers. It all sounds wonderful. But here in Plymouth, we're seeing, more antisocial behaviour, more reporting. And I would say that's probably from good comms that we've been doing with the good work we've been doing with the police. But that money could go in to everyday policing, supporting the antisocial behaviour, so on and so on. And then you ask us at budget to allow you to put your precept up. And every year as a commissioner, you have come to this panel and asked for a rise in your precept. To me, I can't sell this. I need you to tell me how you can make our cities better and have a deputy, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose, firstly, delighted that we got the hotspot policing funding. So we've got £5 million of funding over the last 18 months, really, from the government. And I know we're going to get more. So that's, I'm really excited about a majority government that's going to be able to make some bold decisions. And I'm looking forward to seeing what policing is going to receive. So we are expecting more police officers, more PCSOs, which everyone will be delighted about, and more police specials. But just in terms of the hotspot, so at the moment, Plymouth as a city is one of the areas that's has got and is getting right now extra policing patrols to tackle antisocial behaviour and violent crime on the streets. So you may have seen more patrols. You may have, because people are responding to this and letting me know that they are noticing the visible difference. And it goes to show that when you pay for overtime, you can target where that effort is going. And that's a lesson learned to me about how we can use policing funding in a different way to make sure communities are getting what they need. So just in terms of that, the visibility has been high. But it's not just Plymouth that got it. Barnstaple, Exeter, Newquay, Torquay and Truro also got extra policing patrols this year. So that's going to be happening. And also, I've used some of the Commissioner's reserves that I have, which we didn't spend in a previous year, that we've put aside, and I'm supporting communities with street marshals that aren't getting the hotspot policing money. And that is St Austell, Penzance, Camborne, Bideford, Newton Abbot and Paynton. So you can see that I'm doing my utmost to get as much as I can out on the streets where it will make a difference. The bit for me, and I would say, would you say the same about a deputy leader of a council, that we don't need that? That you could just cope without a deputy leader and you could spend that money on the allowance that they get for something else? So the issue for me is this is a leadership challenge that I face right now. And the leadership challenge that I face is because I do have a suspended chief constable. I have an acting chief constable in place. We've got major performance issues with the police force at the moment that need to be dealt with. We've got a new term of office for me where I do want to do something different. I can't keep doing what we've always done because it's not reducing violence, as you will have seen, panel, from every report I bring to you. And even though antisocial behaviour is showing low, We know it's not low in our communities because it's not being reported. So for me, we need to do something different. That difference is street focus. I really want to spend a lot of time, and I already have since I got elected, on the ground, looking at each individual building, walking the street to establish who owns what, who does what, why are these people still street homeless, trying to establish the problem that we face at a very local level. Now, I do not have the time to do that for a whole 4 years when we've got an organisation that is in dire straits of some strong leadership. So I need the deputy to assist me to do something different, to make a difference to communities and to make sure that I've got strong enough time and capacity to support the force with its challenges.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just before I move on, I'd just like to make a couple of comments of your answer, and thank you for that. Just need to be clear, I don't know about anybody else's local authority, but here in Plymouth, our deputy leaders don't take such a huge SRA, as we call it, a special responsibility. So we can't really relate your deputy to a deputy leader as a financial thing. And I just believe you could do so much more with that amount of money. Your passion is saying, I want to do this, I want to do more. And, you know, over the years, I've been on panel with you, Alison, and I know the passion that you want to do, but you know what I mean, you're using it for another member of staff where it could go to help people. And on top of, you know, another precept, I really hope, and I'm not going to predict, that you don't come here in the next budget and ask for a rise in precept, because, you know, the people of, you know, I'll go for Plymouth, are already struggling with paying for the cost of a police and crime commissioner. Okay, I shall move on. I've got Councillor Penberthy next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just quickly, I also want to pick up on the Deputy Leader point before I go anywhere else. The Deputy Leader of a council is an elected councillor, not someone appointed by the leader from outside the council. They are part of the cabinet, and so their remuneration tends to be, I think in Plymouth it's £4,000 to be Deputy Leader. You're not proposing a post at £4,000. You're not proposing a post that comes from an elected official. You're proposing something different, and I think it's crass to make the recommendation based on an equity across to an elected councillor doing a role that is there as part of cabinet, set down in statute, that has to exist. Your role does not have to exist. It's one that you're choosing to exist. And just because others have got a toy doesn't mean you need the same toy. It might be something different. I just wanted to make that point really clearly before I went on to talk about the fact that you are the Police and Crime Commissioner for Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. What you seem to be talking about now is having a specific role that is Torbay, Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. Now, I'm not saying that Torbay doesn't have issues, but you identified Camborne just now as having these issues. You haven't chosen to trial something that you haven't really yet spelled out to us. You're talking about a new way of working in Torbay that you haven't brought to us as a way of working that's going to be piloted and rolled out over the whole patch, potentially. So there's a whole new load of stuff. You're choosing to do it in your home patch with someone who was a councillor, not only in your home patch, but in, I have now discovered, the same ward as you. This looks very much like a focus based on personal feelings rather than the assessments we heard about just now. Now that begins to bring Nolan into question. I think that if you're going to try a new way, let's talk about it here, let's discuss it, let's discuss how best to deal with it. If you're going to do something that includes things that you have said are not areas of your responsibility, and then you talked about the people who are not delivering and you're not going to be working with in this new thing, the first on that list was local authorities. Now, as the Cabinet Member for Housing, if you want to go and solve my street homelessness problem, great. And if you want to pick up the budget for homelessness, great. But talk to me about it rather than saying that you're going to be addressing these issues not through local authorities, by appointing someone to trial something in an area that isn't my own and then roll out. I think that if you need someone to do this role, once we've tested and talked about the methodology, then go to appoint someone that fits the plan that you have tested through us as a panel, tested with the public through the plan consultation, and at that point, appoint someone to lead it. Not appoint someone to lead something that hasn't been through any form of scrutiny or public consultation. And I hasten to say, I'm busy scrolling through the budget paperwork. I'm now down into the fine minutiae. I have yet to see anything about the appointment of a deputy in any of the headlines in the budget. Now, it might be buried somewhere deep, and I'm scrolling on a phone, but it wasn't clear there, and I think had you mentioned it, we would have probably been raising this in February about due process as well. But in the meantime, please can we look at the processes you want to build, which might be really good, but we don't know because we've not discussed them, and then talk about how they're going to be delivered, and if that in that delivery it's appropriate to have a deputy, then fine. But don't appoint the deputy before you've done any of the other work. That doesn't sound like your normal way of working, Alison. Normally you would work it all through, you'd do your consultations, and then you'd make your appointments, not make your appointments and then go through all the other stages later.
Thank you, Chairman. A few things. Just to be really clear, I'm not doing it with the local authority, what is happening in the Torbay area. I have used my power of convening. So this isn't my role as Police and Crime Commissioner overseeing the police. This is my power of convening that I have used in Torbay and brought all the partners together. One of the reasons why we're not discussing it, coming up with a methodology and consulting on it, is because that's what we do every time and it takes too long. So at the moment, what I'm saying is we're going to try new things, we're going to fail, we're going to mess up, we might even be embarrassed, we're going to try new things, because at the moment, everyone's morale is so low in trying to tackle that problem that we cannot spend a year writing a plan, scrutinising the plan, thinking about the plan, and not delivering on the plan. So we're actually going at right operational level and bringing the operational workers together in the first instance, which is what I've done. I've not gone in with all the senior leaders. I've gone in with the operational workers from all of the agencies and said, we are a team to try and fix this problem, and then we're working up. So just so that you're aware, we are breaking new ground in the way that I'm using my power of convening, because I would normally convene all the leaders, all the senior people, and then it's so slow because everyone's really busy with the day job that I've gone in with people who are doing it every day. So just so you know, we're trying and testing new things. Just in terms of the issue around the funding, I believe it was under statutory pressures in the budget, and I did try to bring the deputy before you straight after the election, but we went into another election. I would say unfortunately, but it's probably fortunate for many successes that happened on the back of that. But that's the reason why we're here today with it. It would have been even quicker, because I want to work at pace. The challenge I've got with the force, the deputy role will be doing my normal job as well, and with a focus on Torquay, so I don't have to do the street focus as much. So they will still be doing the sorts of things I would be doing as a commissioner. If I became extremely ill and was unable to work, the deputy would have to step up and cover that role. At the moment, the arrangements for that is for the chief executive to step up and cover that role. And it is a very uncomfortable position for chief executives who are not political stepping into professionally. It doesn't feel right. And the government probably do need to change that in the near future. So it's also in case of its resilience in terms of me. But pace is what I'm trying to get. If I carry on as I am, we'll be at the pace I've always done. So this is about me stepping up a gear and trying something different.
Thank you, Commissioner. I've got some people on the list. What I'm going to do is ask people who haven't spoken yet and then come back to people who have spoken. Just a bit conscious of the time, because I know people said at pre-meet they had other things to go to. So if we can just keep our questions quite short and our answers short, would be lovely. So Councillor Ewing, please.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Just a couple of comments first. I see there's nothing for South Hams and West Devon. In the summer budgeting, we get one leg of a person over the summer. We were told that the other night at a meeting. With regard to the staffing costs was mentioned in the budget, but it wasn't embellished on or anything like that. I know I wasn't well at that meeting, so I've asked around, I've looked around. I'd also spoken to the chief exec and she told me it was there. I can't find it anywhere, and nor can my colleagues. My questions are actually very short. My first question is to you, Police Crime Commissioner. Why would you appoint a person not previously selected? My next question goes to Mr. Kingscott. Why would you put yourself forward when our notes say it could be potentially career-ending for the selected candidate, but you weren't selected last time? So why have you put again? The comments about to obey I will come to further in the meeting, but I just wanted to keep this bit short.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I suppose South Hams and West Devon, we have got a neighbourhood support team that has come into play in Torbay and South Devon Basic Command Unit, and they are being used across the piece at the moment. They are focused on Torquay, but they will go to other places to assist and support the local policing team. So there is an additional resource at the moment in that area. And I am opening Tavistock Police Station. Yeah, so it should be happening this year. So we've got sort of investment in your area as well, which I hope you're pleased about. And I know that the former MP worked very closely with the police in the South Hams area and created policing drop-off points with key fobs to get into community buildings to enable the police to be a lot more able to get out and about on patch, which I thought was a very good scheme that's been set up. In terms of not previously, ICE obviously selected him last time, and at the time when I brought him to panel, if you recall, I was not coming to you in a position of strength in any way. I was under criminal investigation at the time. You were already angry with me. I don't think I was going to do anything to upset panel at that time that was worth the effort and energy to do. I still believe Mr. Kingscote is the right candidate.
What's your point of order, Councillor Hackett?
Relevant. That was not any consideration of the police and crime panel at the time. It was purely made on the candidate and certain aspects of the candidate. Nothing to do with the police and crime commissioner.
Chairman, Chairman, I'm explaining why I did not appoint after the panel chose not to support me.
You were saying the panel.
No, I said I was not in a position of strength when I came before the panel.
But that was not a consideration of the police and crime panel at the time.
Councillor Hackett, I think what the Commissioner is explaining is why she did not bring it to panel. Is that correct, Commissioner? Okay.
And we're talking 7 years ago, and Mr. Kingscote's developed even more skills since I last pulled him before this area. So that's why I'm bringing him before you. I just need somebody to help me drive at pace. You can probably tell he is an impatient man, and I need that pace to be driven in terms of making sure that we step up to get our police force in a much higher performing situation. We need to do more scrutiny in the absence of a substantive chief constable. We need to do more to support the chief constable, and as I've said, we've worked with His Majesty's Inspector to bring the Lord Hogan Howe in to act as a strategic advisor in the short term. That's how much effort needs to go into this improvement at the moment, and I need the capacity and capability which I need a deputy for.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mark, would you like to answer?
Yes, I want to make a change. I have the skills, determination, and focus to get things done. And I explained earlier that since Christmas, I've been going out every day, knocking on doors, speaking to people. And they're angry. They're angry with the antisocial behaviour, and they want things to change, and they want things done.
Is it a follow-up? Yes, please. Based on the answers from both of you, did you not consider seconding police staff to come and do this role for you? I could do this role for you. I have pretty much identical skills to that gentleman there, except I might have been a bit more hands-on. But, you know, somebody like me's got all those skills, you know, and I'm sure there's people in the police force themselves that might like to be seconded for a year. You know, aspiring officers.
Chairman, thank you. This role is a political appointment. So I need someone who is political, who understands and acts on behalf of residents. I get your comments about the skills that you may have, Councillor Ewings, and I will tell you my frustration that what I've actually been doing since I've been elected in Torquay is act like a local councillor. So there are issues there about the councillors and how their ability to be able, I feel like I'm being a super councillor at the moment. So I do need, those skills are critical without a doubt. But what we need is, I need is someone I can trust, someone who I know believes the same things as me, that can get on and do things without my oversight every 5 minutes. No, not that I would have to oversight you every 5 minutes, Councillor Ewings.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on. Councillor Worth.
Thank you, Chair. You talked earlier on about the fact of, in some cases, just do it. And about an hour ago, I was sat in that chair and I didn't really know I was going to be the vice chair of this committee, or the panel. And I think there is an element of this, is that I take the trust in what you sat there and said, and of the chief exec. All the boxes are ticked on that basis. And I haven't met you before, but I try and make an assessment in your position. And I think, why on earth are you sitting there that you knew you wanted to do this and you're really keen to make it happen? So I'm with the Commissioner. I will take your recommendation and the fact that we appoint this gentleman and of the Chief Executive. We've got a year. Yes, it's a lot of money, but you've got to work damn hard to prove that this is going to achieve what you've said. So I'm going to say at this point that I will support what you want to do.
Thank you. So I had 3 more people left on the list. So it's Councillor Wright, Hackett and Loudon. So Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, the mood in the room is less than happy and flowery and stable at the moment. I think, personally, I can see why you need a deputy. I can't speak for everyone else on the panel, but I don't think there's an overwhelming stand against you having a deputy, and for all the reasons that you've detailed for us. Personally, I'm not against you having a deputy. Elephant in the room again, I'm going to be frank, there seems to be a lot of concern. Forgive me, sir, because I've never met you before, and I wasn't on the panel in 2017. It was a different right. I did look at it and think, oh, I'd forgotten, but I wasn't elected then, it wasn't me. But anybody that was around then seems to have got a lot of concerns about the fact that at that time you had made some inappropriate tweets, and the inappropriateness of them, I believe, was in their language towards members of the LGBTI+ community. So, Commissioner, you have said that Mr. Kingscote has got a lot of experience in representing communities. But knowing what I've know now, what I've heard, I'm really concerned that you won't be able to represent the LGBTQI+ community in the way that I would like to see coming through from the Commissioner's office, because an awful lot of work that she has done, and that many of us have done as councillors as well, is to try and protect that community, be advocates for that community, and we are very aware that a lot of the issues faced, abuse and violence towards women and girls, is also very much directed at that community at the moment. So is there anything you can say to make me feel more assured on this, please?
Thank you, Chairman. A few things. Firstly, we are talking about something 7 years ago. And my view is, I mean, I wasn't offended by it at the time, and I suppose the issue is offence is not given, it is taken. And you cannot please everybody all of the time. I have absolutely no concern about whether Mr. Kingscote is in any way prejudiced or discriminatory. That is absolutely not what I've seen in his behaviours and his actions over the entirety of the time that I have known him, which I would say is now probably about 15 years or so that I've worked alongside him. So I have no evidence to prove that there is anything to be worried about. I would not appoint someone who I thought in any way, shape or form was prejudiced or discriminatory against anyone. So I hope that reassures you, because you know I'm not like that, and so I wouldn't want somebody to represent me that was. I just want to reassure you in that sense.
Councillor Thomas, please.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, if I was a journalist and I wanted to make mischief, I'd write a headline that says Commissioner appoints her mate to a really cushy job for lots of cash. Sorry to be crude, but if I was a journo, that's what I'd probably write. How do you rebut that in a meaningful way? You know, because it would be, Mr. Kingscote, I don't know, I've never met you before. You seem a perfectly nice chap. You've said yourself, you've known the Commissioner for a long time, your fellow ward members. I'm a deputy leader. I don't earn £58,374 special responsibility allowance. I won't lie to the panel. I wish I did, but I don't. But I do know that deputy leaders have to be loyal to their leaders, so I entirely get that. I understand that. I'm not politically naive, but there is a real danger here that you're appointing your friend to a really important, high-profile public role that carries a large amount of money. And that's where my slight disquiet lies, and I'd quite like to hear your response.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the things that I absolutely need in a deputy is someone who wants to tackle the antisocial behaviour and drug dealing that we have got on our streets that I'm fed up with, our community is fed up with, and I need someone who is political to be as angry about it as Mark just talked about earlier as our residents. I can't have someone who wants a cushy job, who wants to sit on 58 grand salary a year, thinking that they're just coming into meetings at HQ to oversee policing. That is not what this role is about. This is a hands-on role, and I need someone who I can trust will go on and get things done. We have got evidence before when we were ward councillors of tackling those issues together and making a difference in our communities. One of the things I will say is there may be other people who could do that role, but I need somebody, as you know, politically, I need someone that I can trust is on the same page as me and will go about things in the same way that I would. There won't be that many people around that would be exactly like that I could prove I could trust. The fact that I have seen his actions and behaviours over a decade of what he's achieved, then that's why I'm so confident that he's the right person for the job. So like I say, let's see what happens in terms of this year. And I would love to bring back to you the blueprint that we've got for Torquay to actually support you in all of your communities as well.
Thank you. Councillor Hackett, please.
Thank you very much. I hear the passion in the Police and Crime Commission's comments. To the Police and Crime Commission, I'd like to just clarify why you are saying this is a super councillor. He is not a councillor. Right, but you are not a councillor, you are the Police and Crime Commissioner. Look, I've been campaigning for Torridge and Northern Devon and saying how we are missed out. I'm hearing it around the room that all this is being focused to Torbay. You know, for heaven's sake, it's just becoming gravity-centric down to the English Riviera. We have our problems up to the top half. That's not for here. That's not for here. What is for here is to try and look at the suitability of this candidate who has made an entirely inappropriate comment on social media, which will get out. Your past will haunt you, sir. Are you prepared to suffer the slings and arrow shots of this comment that was made? And you very well know that comment. Is it going to detract from this appointment? Is it going to detract from the work of the Police and Crime Commissioner? Are you happy? You have said you trust this person. You are of the same views. If you align yourself to that comment, you are going to call yourself into question, Police and Crime Commissioner. Are you happy to go down that route?
Thank you, Chairman. There's a lot of passion in your... So angry, Councillor Hackett.
I believe this is entirely an inappropriate appointment. Yes.
So Hackett, can we allow the Commissioner to answer your question, please?
One of the issues that we need to focus on is the things that are happening in our communities. And I believe that Mark has the right skills and capabilities to help us create a blueprint for the whole of Devon and Cornwall, particularly even issues in your area, Councillor Hackett, that some of the antisocial behaviour that we've got in Bideford, some of the challenges that we're facing on our streets. I cannot continue to do what we've always done, because we've seen violent crime increase and we know antisocial behaviour is above what's reported to the police. So we've got an issue that we need to tackle in a different way. I am confident that Mr. Kingscote is not prejudiced, is not discriminatory, and I am confident that he will represent me well. That will be up to me to cover and deal with any problems if they should arise, Councillor Hackett, and I am willing to take any of those challenges on, because the thing that's most important to me right now is building my capacity and capability to oversee the force with its performance, because we're letting victims down, and as someone who can be on the street and try and fix some of those problems as well. That is my priority.
Okay, just put you on the record.
Councillor Hackett, can we come away from the tweet?
We will be doing,
please?
we will be doing. But to be clear, I want this on the record, that you were aware of the quote that was circulated amongst the police and crime panel back in 2017. Let me be clear. Thank you. Mr. Kingscote, I have some questions for you. What's your current position at the moment?
I took early retirement from the NHS at the end of March.
Thank you. What are your qualifications in town and country planning?
Pardon?
What are your current qualifications? These are relevant. We're not, but I'd like to know the qualifications for the suitability of the job.
I think we need to remember that, you know, the Commissioner has already done all the background checks, okay? I'm really cautious of the time. I do have two members that want to speak, and I'm sure we will need to go into part 2 in a minute, and I would rather give that quite a lot of debate with ourselves. So can you keep it?
I'll keep my questions succinct. Mr. Kingscote, you said earlier that you were invited to the opening of the police station in Exeter on the 1st of February 2020 as a councillor. I have your terms of office. Your last term of office ended in May 2019. I ask again, in what capacity did you attend that opening?
I was there representing the council. The invitation went to the Conservative group, and I was asked to attend, which I did. I may not have been a councillor at the time, but I was still very much.
You were not. You were not. Let's establish that beyond any doubt. Thank you. Right. I, at this stage, have no further questions other than the fact that I would like the committee to note that the average project manager for a planning project is 41,000. We're being asked to confirm the appointment of somebody for 59,000. I can't see this as public money well spent at all.
Okay, thank you for your statement.
Chairman, may I just come back on the cost, the salary? Generally, it's 2/3 of the commissioner's salary, and commissioners are all paid different amounts, just so that you're aware, depending on the size of their force. So 2/3 is why that is the salary of it. And they will have executive decision-making powers, unlike an elected councillor might not have unless they're in the cabinet. These are somebody who will have executive decision-making powers. So just so that you're aware, it's 2/3 of the salary of the commissioner.
Point of clarification,
thank you for explaining
if I may.
that, Commissioner. I'm going to move on. Councillor Alvey, I believe you would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I think everyone needs reminding that this is a political appointment, and it would be surprising if the Commissioner wasn't putting forward somebody who she knows well and can trust implicitly, because, as she has rightly pointed out, it's not just his reputation on the line here, it's hers. And so I'm bearing in mind that the Commissioner has recently been elected at a time when I would say the political tide is going against her party, re-elected for the 3rd time. That would suggest that people within the Devon and Cornwall area have got a great deal of confidence in her, and I have a great deal of confidence in her making this decision based on firm grounds. But the question I'd like to ask is, bearing in mind it's a 12-month appointment initially that you're looking at, would you be content to bring forward as an agenda item before that reappointment is confirmed at the end of the 12-month period, excuse me, a presentation or item to demonstrate the success of the project that you're planning in Torbay, to be able to showcase it to the panel so we can see for ourselves that what you're planning is going to be successful. Thank you.
Chairman, I'd be delighted to bring something forward, and it could even be maybe even at the next one, just some of the steps that we've taken so far, but more than happy to do that.
Okay. So the last person to speak is Councillor Loudon.
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. I have a few questions for Mr. Kingscote, if I may. So I suppose the first question is, are you a member of a political party, and if so, which?
Yes, I'm a member of the Conservative Party.
Thank you. At page 42 of the pack, the Commissioner states that you, Mark, was part of my election preparation team. Which election or elections were these, or it? And precisely what was your role in that, whether formally or informally? That's the first question. Thank you.
I was involved in the Commissioner's recent re-election. I believe in the post, and I believe the Commissioner was the best candidate and the best person to stand in that election. And I think by the result, the people of Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly also have confidence in the Commissioner, and that's why she had a large majority and she was re-elected in very difficult circumstances for the Conservative Party.
Thank you. That was a very good political answer from a politician, so that explains your experienced politician reference, Commissioner. I ask the question again and invite you to answer it directly. What exactly was your role in the transformation team, election preparation team? That was my question. I didn't ask you to explain your interpretation of why the Commissioner was re-elected.
So my role during the recent election was campaigning, going out, knocking on doors. As I said previously, I'm a member of the Conservative Party. I was acting on behalf of the Conservative Party and supporting the Commissioner to be re-elected in that post. So daily, I was out knocking on doors since Christmas, speaking to people, and every single person mentioned anti-social behaviour. No matter where we were campaigning, it was the main issue that came up when we were asking people for their views regarding the Police and Crime Commissioner and policing as a whole.
Chairman, if I may, just to be clear to you, Councillor Loudon, Mark acted as a volunteer campaigner in every election he's ever worked in, including mine.
No, thank you. That's helpful. I'm just looking at what you've told us, and I'm trying to understand it because I'm not a member of the Conservative Party. So, Mr. Kingscote, have you contributed financially to any of the Commissioner's 3 election campaigns?
You mean directly, personally, to the Commissioner's campaign?
Have you given money?
No, I have not given money. I've given time and energy and, volunteer. It's a volunteer capacity. I was campaigning on behalf of the Conservative Party in favour of the Commissioner being re-elected.
Okay, thank you. Now, when the Commissioner was giving her introductory comments, very early on, one of the things the Commissioner said was that she required this role, the role that you're up for, to especially concentrate on the estates function. That's what you said. Because I remember, because you talked about bats in Exmouth. Yet again, regretfully, So what is your experience, Mr. Kingscote, of the estate's function in its broadest sense, other than being, having been a chair of a planning committee?
Well, I'm also chairman of Devon Historic Buildings Trust, and at the moment we're overseeing the transfer of Lawrence Castle, Holden Belvedere, and the estate from Stringer Lawrence Memorial Trust to Devon Historic Buildings Trust. It's been a long, difficult, complicated process, so I understand about estate management. And I've been very much involved in that transfer of assets and the estate.
Okay, thank you. And can I just, I just wanted to pick up on a point you made, if I may. You talked earlier on about having links. You seem quite proud of this. Links into chief executives and MPs' offices. In what capacity do you have links into so many?
Well, in my political background and also in my working background. You know, I've had many dealings with lots of different organisations and also been heavily involved in charity and fundraising. And so, you know, you have to have links and build relationships with lots of these people, and you know, I've been very happy to do that and been very successful.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe, you're doing this to me, so do you actually
I did that.
promise
I
it's
did.
Really, really
I'm well to my word as well,
right,
actually.
Go on.
Commissioner, I've supported you on your whole term of offices, or your whole terms of offices, over the last 8 years or so. And I want to support you today. And what I want to do, Madam Chairman, is to move the recommendation on page 39. But I don't want to put an amendment here, but I just want a formal sort of bit that says, in 1 year's time, Mr. Kingscote comes back to this panel with a detailed situation report of what he has achieved during the last 12 months. That's 12 months' time. So I have a great deal of confidence in your integrity, Commissioner, and the Chief Executive, and I'd like to move that recommendation. Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being so sweet with that question. That will come at the next part. We're going to break now to go into part 2, so we can. Sorry. Yeah. So we're going to go into part 2, so where we can deliberate ourselves. I need to take a vote on that, please. So can I have a show of hands? Thank you. That's been carried. Oh, I actually need to read that out. If I could ask everybody to leave the room, please, that are not panel members. Thank you. I'm looking at bags. Councillor Lever wasn't here, no. Okay. Commissioner, are you all settled? You've got everybody? Yeah. Okay. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're now gone back into part one. Okay. So we're now going to go to recorded voting panel members. And members, if I can ask you, when your name is called out, to either indicate that A, you'll support the appointment without any qualifications or comments. B, support the appointment with association of recommendations. C, recommend not to appoint. So legal will call out your name, and if you can remember A, B, or C that you wanted to say, please. Thank you. I'll hand over to legal.
First on my list is Councillor Hayden.
Recommend not to appoint.
Councillor Alvey.
Recommend to appoint.
Thank you. Councillor Chopak.
Recommend with qualifications.
Councillor Worth.
Recommend to appoint.
Councillor Toms.
C, not to appoint.
Thank you. Councillor Tyman.
Recommend to appoint.
Councillor Thomas.
C, not to appoint.
Councillor Crode.
Recommend to appoint.
Councillor Ewings.
C, not to appoint.
Councillor Hackett.
C, not to appoint.
Councillor Wright.
C, not to appoint.
Councillor Penberthy.
C, not to appoint.
Councillor Loudon.
C, recommend not to appoint.
Thank you. We'll just tally the numbers.
Chairman, as previously discussed, my apologies. I need to leave now to another meeting.
And thank you for staying on. Thank you, panel members. The recommendation is not to appoint. The panel agreed that the candidate does not meet the minimum requirement of the post. The act of the panel recommends the candidate should not be appointed, Commissioner. Right, a long time ago, we were on item 7. So if we can go back to item 7, I know some members are looking at having to go shortly, but if we can go back to item 7, please. And Alison, if you would like to talk us through the key points within the report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of the annual report, obviously I've tried to cover a couple of bits in some of the discussion we've had earlier, so I won't labour the point. It's in front of you. You can make comment on it. We do include more things that we've missed off or anything like that from yourselves. The main thing that I just want to highlight to you, which I think are some of the key things, is really the fact that we've managed to maintain the 3,610 officers and we've got a sustainable budget going forward. I think that's a really positive one. And thank you, panel, for helping with the £406.5 million that we've got to enable us to sustain the officers and staff that we have. In terms of the police inquiry offices that we've opened this year, I'm obviously very delighted to have done those, and I know how supportive members have been, particularly where it's been in your particular area. But Ilfracombe, Devonport, Oakhampton, Kingsbridge, Loo and Honiton, and I've got more that's coming this year. So Plymouth as a city's now got 3 police inquiry offices. Exeter only has 1 by comparison, and Truro only has 1. So you can see that we've got some really good investment into our city of Plymouth in particular. But we've got 4 more that will be opening this year, and I look forward to doing those. One of the things you'll be delighted about, I think, members, is the tri-service officers that we talk a lot about and are very proud about in Cornwall, which is our police, fire and ambulance tri-service, first in the country, very difficult to deliver, 3 lots of inputs, very highly trained professionals. We've actually got our first one seconded into Devon. So because Cornwall Fire is run by the council in Cornwall, that's who hosts the position, and Devon and Somerset Fire and Rescue are run as a separate authority, we've been able to second one into Holsworthy in Devon. So you will be delighted, and we'll make sure that you get to meet the tri-service officer that will be trialling there for, I believe, a 2-year period, with the aim to understand how we can expand that further into Devon. I think that's one of the key successes of last year. Also, just, the prisoners building homes, I keep talking about it quite a lot, but obviously very excited about the appointment of Timpson that the government has put over the prisons probation side of things, and I think he will be delighted to have an early understanding of that project and programme, and we hope to roll that out nationally beyond the southwest. So again, really excited about how far we've developed prisoners building homes. I know that our director of that programme is going to be giving a presentation at an event in the House of Lords invited by the Bishop of Gloucestershire, and hopefully we will be able to promote that even wider to the Lords as well in October. Just to flag in particular, I think a couple of bits I think that have been exemplary. One is criminal justice and you. And I think for members to be aware that this is worth promoting to any victim of crime that approaches you, that needs help, that will be going through a criminal justice process. It outlines at every stage which organisation, what you can expect. It's got video, it's got documents, it's got sign language, it's got everything you could need to reassure you about what the next stage is if you're going through a criminal justice process. We're the first in the country to produce it. This is totally to help victims be less nervous, less anxious about next steps, and particularly we're promoting that nationally soon because it could be used anywhere, even though it's been produced by Devon and Cornwall, and it's Devon and Cornwall staff in each of the criminal justice agencies that's on the video, so it's very raw, but the reality is it could be used anywhere because those processes should be the same. So criminal justice and you is one I'm particularly proud of. So I think the bit for me is, the office that I hold has been carrying on delivering what it's promised to deliver. But as you know, one of our biggest challenges now is trying to get the force into a position of good performance. And I will not be shying away from that, Chairman, that is my key focus.
Thank you, Alison. Do we have any questions? Councillor Penberthy.
Thanks. I was slightly disappointed that I had to dig through to find anything and find the word violence against women and girls. It is there, but it's sort of hidden, and hate crime is not really talked about at all, and those are things that I know we as a panel have talked about quite a lot. It's disappointing that VORG is hidden and hate crime doesn't appear at all, considering how much we have talked to you about it. I'd have hoped we wouldn't need to remind you at a panel meeting that they could do well being in your annual report more explicitly. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it will be particularly pertinent to put in the hate crime scrutiny that we did and highlight some of those things as well. And in terms of the violence side of things, this is particularly focused on the programme that we've been running rather than everything we've been doing. But I take your point, Councillor Penberthy. It's not strengthened in there at all at the moment. And
I know that yesterday the Deputy Prime Minister specifically mentioned VORG at her first speech, so it would just do us no harm to reflect current government thinking in paperwork that's happening in the area.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Penberthy. Councillor Alvey.
Thanks, Chair. And just to highlight and thank you for the uplift in tri-service safety officers. One you mentioned Holsworthy. The other two are really thanks to your support, who are going to Penzance and Camborne to focus on antisocial behaviour. So, really just to confirm that not only have you assisted in the uplift of tri-service safety officers, they're going to Cornwall to tackle a particular challenge in two of our most challenging communities, as identified by Councillor Penberthy earlier.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Thank you, Chair. So, page 29 of the pack, so the prisoners building homes, which I've always thought was an interesting project. I note there that you say this ambitious programme started life in Tor Bay, the centre of the universe at the moment. The serious point, though, is that on your website you talk about 14 sites that you're doing. I couldn't find on there, unless I misread, the sites. You don't have one in East Devon? Are you likely to have one in East Devon, being very parochial?
Chairman, thank you. I would love a site in East Devon. We explored with local authorities any sort of sites that we were looking for. It could be your own that you own, or ones that you're aware of that are just unused that we could look at. So I would welcome if you've got any particular sites that I could link in with the scheme.
Chair, if I may just come back very briefly, can I therefore encourage whoever it is, your officer or in this programme, contact the portfolio holder for sustainable homes, Dan Ledger.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to show my appreciation for the work that's gone into tackling antisocial behaviour, and in particular in Exeter, the work that's gone on firstly to increase the policing numbers slightly. We now have 2 inspectors instead of 1, which means we feel sorry for the 1 inspector that retired. We know what a job he was doing now. It's been taken over by 2 full-time inspectors. But we're already seeing quite a lot of improvements in the city centre, so I just wanted to flag that up and say thank you for that. And also the partnership between the council in Exeter, the bid, and the police, with some money that came from the commissioner and then more money that was put in with the partnerships, now means that we have 3 community safety patrol officers that have started this week. Literally more feet on the ground, not police officers but community officers. So there is good work happening. There are things that are coming through and we are seeing a difference. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Ewan.
I'd just like to remind the Police Crime Commissioner that I'm the chairman of the Devon Housing Task Force, and at 3 o'clock the long-awaited Devon Housing Commission report is due out, which I will make sure you get. The report, sorry, Councillor Hayden, is like a blueprint for Devon. So actually, with what we're going to look at, your project would be really welcomed to become involved, and I will make sure you are as we go forward.
Chairman, may I say I'd really appreciate that, Councillor Ewings, because we attempted to get an agenda item on the Housing Commission and we got no response. So it'd be really delighted to plug into that in some way.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to item 8, and I'm just trying to do a bit of a head count here. We're starting to become very uncomfortably that we will not be quorate. So, Commissioner, if you'll forgive me, can I ask the panel that we go straight into questions for item 8, because I would have expected all panel members have read it, and if you had anything to say, you could probably bring it out in some of the questioning. So we're moving on to item 8. Do we have any questions, please? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. Just very quickly, is there any more detail on the range of partners that will be consulted on? Sorry, trying to find the page. Page 37, there'll be a 4-week public consultation supplemented by feedback gathered from a range of partners. Is there any more detail on who and how with regard to the partners, please?
Chairman, if I may, it will be the usual suspects, so it will be the council, it will be probation, it will be the courts, it will be, these are my usual suspects, by the way, not maybe yours, and it will be charitable, voluntary and community sector. I think the one thing I will do differently this time that I didn't do with the last two iterations is I will be writing to leaders of councils, of local authorities, to ensure that they have sight of it, because influencing that plan, as you know, as panel members, is critical to get those issues into me so that I'm really clear. I'm looking at data, and as we all know, data only tells you part of the picture, and so feedback from local authority leaders would be really helpful as well. So that I hadn't done before, and I will do that for this one.
Councillor Hackett.
Thank you, Chair. I'd seek some clarification on the position of the Chief Constable, who's been suspended for a rather considerable amount of time. I'm hearing from you this morning in an earlier exchange that it was anticipated that there was no resolution coming up in the immediate future. Could you elaborate a bit more and explain why we are paying for somebody who is suspended and may be suspended for some considerable period of time at public expense?
If I may, Chairman, where I can tell you where we're at in the process, but I can't tell you a time frame at this point. So a file has been passed over to the Public Prosecution Service. That does, by the way, just to reassure members, that doesn't mean he's guilty of something at this point. The level of threshold is an offence may have occurred, is the threshold for the Ombudsman. That's been handed over to the Public Prosecution Service. We have been in communication with them. They're unwilling to share any information with me at this point through duty of candour or any legal ways in which they feel they can share with me. So at the moment, I am awaiting the response to the Public Prosecution Service as to whether they are going to take it forward or not as a case. And at the moment, I don't have a time frame other than they will speak to me again in September. That's the nearest time frame I've got of a next step.
Thank you. Councillor Penberthy.
Thank you. Yes, obviously this is about how you develop a new police and crime plan. Given that there was a King's speech this week and there is absolutely no reference at all in here to what might happen not only in the next one Parliament term, but in the 3 terms that will follow that. Is it just because of that's the nature of King's speeches, there will be 4 during a Parliament. So where not only the King's speech, but where direction of a manifesto might need to be reflected in this so that it's not having to be continually renewed. It doesn't seem to be there at the moment in the thinking, and I think it might be worth being explicit about the fact, especially as one of them is a crime and policing bill, which has a focus on neighbourhood policing and on antisocial behaviour, and on stuff around retail workers and knife crime and VOG. So there are some bits in there that chime already, but bits that don't necessarily get featured, and it might be worth being on a front foot with our plan here.
Chairman, if I may, there's a few mechanisms which the government can use also to help me with that, which is the strategic policing requirement and whether they're going to strengthen the VOG, the violence against women and girls element in that, because at the moment it's really training and things like that that's in there. They may strengthen the strategic policing requirement, which, because I have to hold the Chief Constable to account for delivering on the strategic policing requirement, that will be one mechanism which it'll happen by default, if you know what I mean. But we will certainly, because obviously we didn't have the King's speech when we wrote and prepared these papers for you, and I don't think anything's going to conflict with anything we would imagine should be probably in a police and crime plan. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making sure we tie up all the loose ends around that.
And I think some of that might be about, if there is legislation coming up, what happens in the police and crime plan about ensuring that experience in Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly, both in terms of remote and peripheral urbanity, as well as very remote rurality, gets taken into consideration when metro mayors and major urban conglomerates are the bits that are quite often thought about most by any government. So making sure that Devon and Cornwall's perspective is in the thinking actually that's part of a crime plan as well, because if we can't influence, then we're continually caught up on actually we'd like Vorg to be saying this and it doesn't, and the reason we want it to say this is. So I think there is a bit only not about how we take and being aware of what might change, but also how we influence what might be coming up. And you know, there are now quite a lot of MPs sitting on the government benches in your patch that you might want to bring up to speed on some of those things.
Chairman, sorry to labour, but it's the point. But just to read, I mean, I've got a lot of new MPs to help, no offence, educate about our challenges, and all of your help would be appreciated in that, particularly around the funding formula arrangements. His Majesty's Inspectors just produced the State of Policing report today that's been released. In it, it talks about the funding formula must be addressed. Now, at the moment, I haven't heard that from the government, but that might be one of the things that we do want to make sure our voice is heard on in particular, and we do need to educate our new MPs. So I look forward to building a relationship with them as we go forward on that matter, like you say, to make sure that they understand the needs of Devon and Cornwall as a whole, not just their constituency.
Thank you. Councillor Loudon.
Just in response to what you said to Councillor Wright about you were going to communicate with leaders, it would perhaps be helpful if you could copy in those of us on this panel who don't hold those illustrious roles. We can then hold their feet to the fire.
And perhaps deputies as well, please, even though we don't get paid very much.
I do apologise. I had legal talking to me, so I do apologise. Councillor Loudon, are you finished with your question? Yeah? Yes. Fine. Councillor Tom, and that'll be the last question to this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison. Just on your thing about the funding of police forces, as you'll have probably heard during the election, some 6 million more people live in the UK than it did at the beginning of the Conservative reign, if you like. That means it's like 12 hospitals the size of Derriford, the doctors, the nurses, and all the other things, the GPs and everything. It means more. But what would it mean to the police force in general across the country? And that would be somewhere in the region of about 22,000 extra officers. So you're behind the curve before you ever start. And I think I did some figures and I shared them with Nicola prior to the meeting about the impact of Airbnbs. And you know, if you said, right, every Airbnb is going to pay the police and crime piece up, it would be somewhere in the region of £5 million just for Cornwall. And that's not the rest of the area. So, you know, the impact is immense. And we know that during the summer, if you had that extra, you know, £5 million, it would make a big difference to the police numbers that you can put on the ground, you know, boots on the ground, if you like. And I think that if we do have a conversation with the powers that be, I think that should be clearly stated to them that, you know, that the funding is unfair, because when you do the numbers for your force against the numbers for London, they get more officers per number of people. It's something like about 280 and it's 3 something here. I haven't done the exact figures yet, but I will do them, because I believe that we are under-resourced, and I think that's a way of defeating the arguments that will come and say, well, you know, we've got the bigger crime. Well, actually, we can prove that crime impacts on everybody, as we've already stated. Thank you.
Chairman, this is just for notes for my office, actually, is I think what we should do in the police and crime plan is be very explicit that we will make the case for policing in Devon, Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly and against our summer challenges and or any other challenges that we see as an issue. I think I'll make it quite explicit in the police and crime plan, so people are working on it as it's not just a side issue. I think that would be helpful, Councillor Toms, that I make it quite explicit in the police and crime plan that we will make the case again of our challenges in Devon and Cornwall, make it part of it. I think it links with what Councillor Penberthy was also mentioning.
Okay, thank you.
Panel, we're, just to note this, I know some of you are like waving your hands to say you've got to go. So, Commissioner, are you happy for us to take the rest of the agenda? We will not be quorate, so it will not be minuted. Are you happy for us to finish off with less panel members?
Chairman, I'm quite happy for you to take as read unless you've got any particular questions as panel, because it's all written in explicit form. So,
thank you very much. That is extremely helpful, Commissioner. Does anybody, oh, I've got a pen waving at me. So, what item, and thank you very much, people that are leaving. So, what item we're on? Item 11, which would be the only one you would have. Commissioner's update report. And I also want to talk about the Peel report. Oh, right, thank you. Yeah, okay, this first one's really easy. Which Home Secretary did you meet? James Cleverly or Yvette Cooper?
Chairman, I met James Cleverly, but I actually met Yvette Cooper on the Sunday after they were elected and appointed into government. She's been very proactive at reaching out, and she's also spoken at the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners the following week outlining her priorities, which I can be really clear is public confidence in policing.
So that's brilliant. My next one is, as it's next on your report, about this and the ratings that were given. I have to say, and I'm sure members here would have found it really disappointing. It's not good news. I know we have an acting chief constable. I know you're not operational, so this is going to sound a bit strange. What are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Chairman. In terms of that report, it is disappointing. I mean, the acting chief constable's quite disappointed because some of the data used is almost a year old.
Yeah.
But I think I've tried to reassure him that even while it has improved, because we've been going, as you know, to these monitoring meetings with His Majesty's Inspectorate, it hasn't dramatically improved. It's improved incrementally. So it's not really something to shout about at the moment till we get into a better position. The biggest thing that's within my power to solve is the Chief Constable position. And I am expecting to make a decision at some point this year around that position, but I can't be more explicit than that. But that is the fundamental crux of the power that I have to try and make that, other than being extra bureaucratic over the police force, which I am doing in the meantime, but we actually just need someone who's substantive to be running the force at this stage.
Thank you. Did you want to go again? Yeah. Thank you very much for my police station. That's very short and sweet. I'd like to congratulate you on the misconduct panel members who applied. I think that's an incredible number of people that applied for the role. So, yes, hopefully they're all tickety-boo. On the 101 section, so page 81, it talks a lot about the measurements and all the rest of it, and we know it's not great. It's much better than it has been, which is good. But one of my questions is, do you think the drop rate is associated with new stations opening, that people are going to a station and they're not going to 101? It doesn't say that in here, and maybe that is a factor, and actually it'd be good to put it in here to show that your police stations are making a difference.
Chairman, if you recall, you've asked me about footfall to police inquiry offices, which still is in its infancy of doing it robustly, but we will be bringing something to you around that. I do believe that the reopening of police stations are giving people confidence, actually, that the police want to hear from them. But I don't know whether that is making the difference on the phone lines, because the natural reaction is still to ring rather than go to the stations. But I believe, I'm just looking to Patrick, the force have put a massive PR campaign that's supposed to be going out in readiness for the summer to promote each police inquiry office in their local area. So I'm hoping that there will be even more awareness of those offices.
One issue that came up at our police, I was going to say police West Devon Matters meeting, get it right, was on the list of buttons you can press, there's nothing for transport or roads, that if people want to report something on that. The other thing is, I've had, which I will bring to you later, is somebody who was reporting a crime as it was happening, but it didn't warrant a 999. And then they tried to do it online, because that's what 101 told them to do. And the bit that wasn't felt was right was having to give full soup and fish about the person phoning in. And he said by the time he got everything done, they were well gone. But fortunately, you know, there's CCTV, but we're not accepting that either, I understand, because Princetown put it in, and it's not been assessed by you guys or anything like that, I understand. So it's irrelevant. So we're looking into that, because Inspector Walker was a bit askance at that bit. But yeah, so very succinctly, sorry, Councillor Hayden, I'm done.
Thank you. I was just about to say. Councillor Penberthy.
Yeah, just two bits I wanted to pick up on. First of all, obviously a big thanks for the support during the World War II explosive issue. I think it might have been quite nice had you explicitly thanked all of the people involved in Gold Command, rather than just sort of saying you supported other public services, and just to be explicit about that. And you know, I would like to pay tribute not only to the police, but to all the other services, to not only the military, but fire and rescue, health, obviously the council, and to thank Councillor Hayden in her cabinet role for the work she did on fronting a lot of that. And I just think it might have been quite nice had you done so in your written report. I'm sure you will pick that up now. The other bit I wanted to talk about in responses, you're talking about the phone lines and you're talking about front doors. We're trying to drive people online for 101 reporting. What we're not picking up here is actually how that's going, how many people are dropping during form completions, what the response times are there. I think it might be quite useful in future to begin to bring online reporting into this as well, just to give us the perception of that as well, because we are trying to drive lots of people there. And I know I'm trying to drive residents there for a lot of low-level and antisocial behaviour and drug dealing. Sort of, I've spotted someone on a corner who's never going to get. There was a noisy vehicle at 3 o'clock in the morning just sitting outside revving. Is never going to get a 999 response, but could be done more effectively 101 or online. And I'm trying to say people go online rather than sit on the phone. So I think we do need the reporting on online to be part of this as well. That was my only two on that report. Thank you, Chair.
Chairman, just a couple of points. Didn't mean to be not complimentary about everybody who dealt with the World War II bomb in Plymouth. In fact, Councillor Hayden was amazing on Sky News, on national television, in terms of reassuring the public, and really good. Giles Perrott as well, some of the police commanders, the Marines, all of the army, everyone that was down there. Really amazing, actually. Plymouth, I hate to say this, is at its best in a crisis. I mean, it absolutely is the best at coordinating really difficult situations, and there's really great teamwork. I was on the periphery, so I was completely on the periphery of it, so that's probably why the short report doesn't really reflect what went on, because I didn't have oversight of it. I'm on the periphery of it, totally in the hands of Plymouth City Council, I would say, and the local policing commander that was dealing with that, and the Assistant Chief Constable, Mayhew, who oversaw the Gold Command. You're absolutely right, Councillor Penberthy, on that particular issue. Just in terms of reporting, I would like to promote, because I don't, well, firstly, the data in here on contact, I think you wanted a report on contact in terms of the agenda, and it was my compromise to try and get it to you without you having another agenda item on contact. So it's not a full detailed report on all of the performance. So I do understand that. But just to promote in terms of the online reporting, there is now a national app called police.uk, which is the same as the police's website, because we've all got standardised websites now. Police.uk, you can download it to your phone and you can report crime through that app. That just might be useful for members to be aware of, and again, to promote to your communities for ease. But you're right, they do ask for your inside leg measurement before you can actually get to the issue that you actually want to tell them about. It is very frustrating, but it's all about if the call drops off or the info drops off or the website drops off, they've got contact details for people, and you also might have to report in a court. So they do want all those details. I do apologise. 999, slightly different. You're trying to get across the emergency, but police.uk I'd just like to promote, Chairman.
Thank you very much. And I think it would be really handy if maybe we can get that out. I'm looking at democratic support. So all councillors, not just panel members, can actually promote that. And thank you for your kind words. I have to say, the volunteers loved the cakes, Alison, so you've done very well there. Councillor Hackett, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, Alison, you mentioned about the opening of the police stations, very welcome indeed. Could you bring back, and I think I heard this in your report, that you would bring back detailed numbers for footfall for each station so that we can assess going forward the effectiveness of it? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. It was just a question about the Peel assessment with the toil situation. I think the heading was where it needs improvement under management section, which was in the link that was in this report. So that's a consideration, a worry that people are doing a lot of overtime but not being able to take time off in leave, or banking it all up, and then when they leave they take that as a payment. I think that happens across a lot of institutions, to be honest, but I just wondered if that is that underlying something else about an inability to be able to recruit still at the moment, because I know in Exeter we've got 2 PCSOs that have just retired or left, and I've been told that there won't be any push to actually start the recruitment process to replace them until February 2025, which I don't know how we're going to manage without them. So is this overtime and toil problem because of still not being able to recruit to the numbers that we're able to financially?
Chairman, it's a bit more of an operational question, but I'll give you my best sort of informed guess around some of it. I'll start with the PCSO one. Obviously, we need a cohort of X number of PCSOs before they run a training session, because it's very expensive to do very small inputs with people. So that's probably why it's February. But I will just go back and check, because that means they're either making an assumption we're losing more by February and they'll have enough for a training session, or that there's only one training session a year, recruitment session. I will go back and check on that one in particular, because yeah, if there isn't many and there isn't many for enough ages, then they're absent for a long time, and that's not great. There's 2 bits in that report actually. So there's the time off in lieu bit, and there's also the overtime issue that's also mentioned in that report. And it talks about there not being enough, that overtime is used to because it's cheaper than recruiting extra officers, and that's absolutely not a fact and not the case. And that's what it says in the report, because, I don't know, somebody lower down the ranks thinks that's why we use overtime, and we don't. The force uses overtime to flex and be dynamic when they need the effort to be used. So that is why overtime is used, because it's much more dynamic. But in terms of the toil, all I know is that obviously this goes back to our funding challenge. We have a real influx of visitors in the summer, and people can't take time off in the summer. We actually have bans on taking time off for some officers in the summer, and that will make it even more harder for them to take their time off in lieu, as well as any annual leave that they're entitled to. So I think that is our challenge. We have this all the time in our police force, and I think that's part of the welfare challenge for officers, because they're not able to take the break maybe when they want it, but also because of that summer influx, people are restricted on the ability to take the leave. So that the events, dear boy, events, I think has overtaken some of the issues around why police officers can and can't take their time off in lieu. I'm not saying they're not happy about getting paid instead. I'm not saying they're disappointed that they don't just get paid instead, but it's not good for a welfare issue to be able to take that time off that's well earned.
Thank you. So panel is to note the report. We're going to go to item 11, which Fran is going to, I'm handing over to Fran now.
Thank you, Chair. Relatively straightforward. There was one complaint in the period that was resolved through the Chair at the time, and there are no ongoing issues, and nothing in the current period.
Brilliant, thank you. Item 12, so it's just our tracking decision. Panel is just a note, unless there's any issues that panel want to bring up. No. And then we're then going on to item 13, which is the work programme. Councillor Penberthy, I can take your recommendation off it, but we can't move it forward because we're not core, I'm afraid. But at least we know.
I was just going to say, we've already heard that the Police and Crime Plan will be coming in September as a draft and isn't on the forward plan, so probably should be put on. I wondered whether the Commissioner, in the same way she did some work on hate crime for us, despite the fact it was sort of that quick overview, whether, given the ongoing Peel assessment issue, might be prepared to do a briefing for us overarching on the Peel assessments, because I think that might help us understand the challenges she's facing in seeing it through, and also where she is able to exert influence. I think that might be quite useful for us all to have. And the other bit is, we keep on not getting as far as recruiting our independent members, and I think we now have both vacant, and it might be worth putting that onto the work programme just so that we give ourselves those extra 2 opportunities.
Excuse me, I thought we'd done something about that, haven't we, Jack? I'm sure I've read.
Through you, Chair, we have undertaken a few selection processes. There's a selection panel happening this month, so you should have an independent member, hopefully, by the next meeting.
Liz? So I was just going to say, we'll liaise with your office, Commissioner, to put forward an agenda for next time. Ask any members if they want anything extra on the agenda, and we'll finalise that and then deal with the work programme at the next meeting, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Tom?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As you probably guess, I love the funding aspect of everything, you know, to make sure that we get a fair deal. If I told you that the population in the southwest is 400,000 more than that of Scotland, but if we had the same funding per person, we'd get somewhere in the region of about £13 billion more, which would be nearly £1 billion to Cornwall. My thing with this is, can we put on the programme, as I've said, you know, let's get some real facts and figures behind this, because I think we could support the Commissioner and her team by actually not just making the financial case, but making the political case for better funding for our area. And I think that would be a benefit, not for perhaps this generation of councillors, but the ones that follow us, that will have an easier job to make easier decisions, because there's money available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just before I close, panel, I do apologise we ran over the 25 minutes and we did skip very quickly over an item, and I appreciate your patience. But I thought it was really important that we took our time on a certain item to have real good conversations. So can I thank Commissioner and your team, and especially yourself, Mark, and panel members. And our next meeting is the 6th of September. Thank you very much. Meeting closed.